The Koigig Pod on OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Top pocket goal!
It's what dreams are made of.
They are going to the World Cup Finals!
Hello and welcome to the 50th episode of the Koigig podcast, which is quite an impressive feat, I have to say. I don't think any of us ever thought we would get this far, but delighted that we have done. I am Kathleen McNamee and I am joined by some very esteemed company as always. We have former Ireland and Arsenal goalkeeper Emma Byrne, as well as freshly awarded Pima Player of the Year Karen Duggan, who's just adding a bit of a general sense of authority to our podcast today.
I would use the word fresh very lightly.
Well, you know, this is what I was joking about during the week. I mean, my intros are just going to have to keep getting longer and longer with the more awards that we either win as a group or individually. So, you know, and I'm perfectly okay with that. It's a great way to spend the top 10 minutes of the show just listing off all the things we have achieved. But no, very big congratulations to you, Karen. That was lovely news to see on my Twitter feed during the week, and very well deserved, as I'm sure. Well, I don't know if Emma will want to compliment you, but I'm sure she does agree.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm back talking to her now that she's back in the cold weather. There's no jealousy whatsoever. So
misery loves company, isn't that the saying? What?
Congratulations on winning and staying. So well done.
Yeah. I was like, there's no need to give me that award. I'd already signed. So it's fine.
So it wasn't like written into your contract when you were saying, you were like, you have to award me.
I cannot reveal what goes on in the background cannot be revealed on this.
She's a total diva. Of course she had it in there.
Always out with the Prague. Absolutely. Now, to be fair, Erin McLaughlin won the Players Player of the Year. I think that's pretty solid shout there. I think she got voted by the majority, and Tara O'Hanlon got Young Player of the Year, and they're two really key signings for us for next year as well. So delighted that they got recognised more so, because they're the future.
Classic Karen Duggan won't let herself have a moment and has to pass it on to someone else.
Had enough. But
you were also, as well as winning your award, you were also away in the very sunny Barbados. How was the trip? Did you
wouldn't know it though.
Hey, come on.
Pasty, still pasty ass.
The Irish skin doesn't keep the tan, is all I'm saying. Now, there was a tan for about 30 minutes there, I swear, and it just seems to have dropped off over the weekend.
We need Insta content, Karen, to actually prove this.
Okay, I'm working on the Insta content. I'm trying to get better. Get that blue tick going, you know.
If anyone from, well, I don't know how many people actually have their jobs anymore on Twitter. I was going to say, if anyone on Twitter or Instagram is listening to us right now, get on that for you. But yeah, that it may not last all that long. I'm pretty sure you can pay for from about next month or something. So
yeah, no, not worth it.
If you suddenly appear with a blue tick,
I'm not interesting enough to have a blue tick. It's fine.
Yeah, well, if it does come up without the little official tag, then you will be getting dragged in the show for paying for
of course, deservedly so.
That's just the way we do things here. So coming up on the show, we did have WSL action back this week, which means we will have our very own Emma Carroll back with her classic team of the week. We did our team of the season so far last week, which, Karen, you weren't here for, but I think you would have been happy enough. We were pretty agreeable about it for once, so it wasn't too bad. And then later on in the show, we will also be chatting about all the action that happened over the weekend. But before we get into that, just at this start bit, obviously there was some big news that came through last week about WNL clubs now being allowed to offer professional contracts for the first time next season. This is obviously something that we have talked about quite a lot on the show, and I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed to kind of pass with like very little fanfare or notice, and I'm not sure if that's because people don't really know what is going to happen with it or what it's actually going to look like, because obviously for every club it probably will look differently. But Karen, I just go to you about your thoughts on it, because obviously as someone who's in the league, someone who's been involved in these conversations before, you might be able to give all the listeners a bit of a roundup of what this actually means for the league.
Well, I guess there's kind of two sides to it. I was looking on Twitter when it was announced, and there's, for me, obviously concern that the smaller clubs, the clubs that aren't backed by men's teams, won't be able to offer these professional contracts. And players will move on to clubs that are in the position to do so. But a major benefit of them as well is that you're protecting the work that you've put into developing these players if you can get them on a professional contract, because it will mean that if clubs do want to come in and sign them and they're contracted, the club will be compensated. That's a major plus, but I don't see it happening too frequently. I don't see players signing up to, contracts that are longer than a year at a time, because even in, say, the WSL and a lot of places in Europe, Emma, you'd know there's not too much money spent on transfer fees. I mean, there's a lot of movement about, maybe more so now, but long-term contracts are only becoming a new thing. And for a lot of our girls, if they do want to move abroad, having that transfer fee might be off-putting to a club and they might not want to put themselves in that position. Then you have the flip side of just getting paid for minimum €420 a week if they are on that full professional contract, which is obviously huge for any player, and it allows them to concentrate more on their training and things like that. So I think it's long-term will be a great thing in terms of clubs being able to protect the investment that they've put into players. For me, it seems just a little bit rushed this year putting it in. I think it only serves a few clubs who are in a position to offer those contracts, and
you're being very careful about what you're saying.
That every club should have been given a bit more time to do it, but again, at the same time, now is the time to make progress. Now is, we'll say, when women's football is making those strides. So I understand where it has come from as well.
But what exactly does it mean? Does it mean that players are going to be training every day? Is that going to be their primary job?
That's completely at the prerogative of the club. I wouldn't think so, because they won't be in a position to offer everyone these professional contracts. It won't be their, I'd imagine it won't be anyone's day job, that we won't be moving to daytime training sessions or anything like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I see, it will be just very phased in at the moment until we could get to a point of that. I don't think we're at that level yet.
So we don't really know exactly what it means. They're just put a title on it. Professional contracts are being offered, but we don't know whether that means full-time training, whether it means they'll be looked after like physically, mentally throughout the week, every day.
Very much, up to the club and how the club interpret that. I mean, how they interpret their contracts. I haven't seen anything that sets out exactly what would be involved in that. Obviously, I'm at a club that won't be rolling that out, because we wouldn't be in a financial position to do so, particularly not this year. I think clubs would need time to see what a professional setup would look like to them. But from my standpoint, I don't think it means that you become a full-time footballer.
Well, this is one of the things that kind of confused me when I saw the announcement, because I was kind of looking for more details, and I was interested. So obviously, like I said, we've talked about this so much, and we've talked about the concerns around it so much, and obviously the positive side to it as well. But you would think an announcement like this should come with some sort of like, I don't know, like pool or fund, or
I would have thought that it would have been backed by some sort of government or FAI funding thing to help clubs to get on board with this if they do want to move it to a more professional structure. Like, being a more professional footballer should be the ultimate goal of it. It shouldn't just be about getting a payment and protecting your asset in terms of monetary value. I think it should be looking towards the development of the player as well, and I just haven't seen enough detail that it points to that yet.
Because the number one thing we said about this is that the worst thing in the world that would happen is if it's just a label slapped on the league and everyone's like, right, great, we've got that, we're sorted, all the problems disappear, we don't actually have to talk about this anymore because we have secured the status for the league. And you would have thought that the people who were involved, considering it was the FAI and the League of Ireland, would have looked at everything that had happened in the League of Ireland and the difficulties clubs faced there when it came to offering contracts.
I think clubs are in favour of implementing something like this. I just think that we maybe needed more time before this was put on the table, and maybe more thought process into what it would look like, and help the clubs who have to all of a sudden change from an amateur status to a professional status. It's not as easy as that when you're largely run by volunteers and parents and things like that. We're not all in the same boat as your Bows or your Rovers. So support is needed, and I think that should have come with this announcement.
I'm even just looking at the general statement here from League of Ireland director Mark Scanlon, and he's just saying like the announcement will prove to be a significant milestone in the history of the game here and comes at an apt time for the women's national team. Clubs will now be able to provide certainty and a platform for growth for their players as they look to progress on and off the pitch. We look forward to working with all our League of Ireland clubs to help ease this exciting transition. You can call them League of Ireland clubs. I'm kind of like, there's a bit of a difference there. You know what?
It actually sounds like, okay, it sounds like a really positive thing. And I think anything that's going towards professionalism does not mean money. It just means professionalism, as in trying to get your players to train more, try to provide the best services for your players to help them improve. But it sounds very much like when I first went to England, which was a very long time ago, before the FA stepped in and gave central contracts. They basically allowed their clubs we had contracts, but it just depended on how much the club wanted to pay you. Some of us were full-time, some of us were part-time. And it worked, but there has to be a plan behind it. There has to be some kind of structure. So literally 2 years later, the English girls were getting central contracts, which allowed them to go and train in certain centres to help improve the national team. And that was a really good thing for them. If the whole idea is to improve the players, particularly the players that might play for Ireland, I just want to know what kind of structure, and why not say that this is for our players to improve and we want them training a certain amount of hours per week. We want this provided. There has to be a structure. It just seems very, very general.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. It's not just about the money. Like, it shouldn't be just about the money. And I do think getting more of those home-based sessions and girls who are on these professional contracts, that should be part of it. The Western centres, because again, clubs probably can't step up 5 days a week.
No, and I hope they can't, being honest, because if you think about it, it's not enough money, first of all, for a weekly wage. And second of all, you're asking some of your young players to give up what they're doing at the moment, which I hope is studying and planning for their full-time job, which they will have after. And if you take that away from them, that's dangerous. And it's something that I would hate to see happen. Back home. I
don't think that's going to happen. I really do think it's just going to be up to the club. But again, maybe there's more to come on this that obviously we just haven't seen yet. But yeah, like you say, the way the English model was done worked out really well. And if we could emulate something similar, it would be good. My concern is that it is going to be centered around money, and then you'll get all the best players to the club that can offer the most money. And we'll look at maybe what happened in Scotland, where there was one team dominating for 13 years. And was that actually really good for them and their development? It's hard to know. It's hard to know how it will go.
Well, we certainly hope there is more details to come, and we will try and find those out and bring them to our listeners, because I don't know, I'm still pretty curious about it, and everyone I ask doesn't really seem to have much of an answer. And like, especially like Karen, you're in the league, you're in these conversations, you know, if you're curious about
I'm not in the conversations. I saw it on Twitter.
Well, I mean, like
everyone else. Yeah, that's what I mean. I saw it on Twitter like everyone else. I know I'm at a club that it won't be implemented. So who is this serving, and what is the end goal would be kind of nice to know. So especially if we're coming on here talking about it, we should be able to give more information. At the moment, it's just not there for us.
Well, no better trio to hold a few people to task should we not get the information. I don't think anyone will be dropping this one for a while anyways. And the COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports is an association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We are still running our competition thanks to our partners at Cadbury. We're supporting Irish women's grassroots football and giving away all the net profits from our most recent Cadbury Roadshow in Vicar Street. To have the opportunity to win €1,000 worth of equipment for your local grassroots adult club, just contact us with your club details and contact information at thecoygigpod@offtheball.com. Terms and conditions apply. Head over to otbsports.com for more. once again is our favourite person, Emma Carroll, to give us her team of the week. Emma, how did you find doing your team this week? You did say earlier that there's a bit more of a Liverpool bias than previous times.
Yeah, well, I sensed last week that maybe there was some complaints that there wasn't enough. So this week I put that right. I'll go through the team first and then we can chat through it. So I put Emily Ramsey in goal, Campbell, Fahey, Letizier and Bagier at the back, Holland and Matthews in the middle, and then a 3 and a 1 or whatever, 4 attackers anyway. Chloe Kelly, Ella Toone, Brighton and Kirby up front.
Quite a team, and a little bit of Irish representation too, which I feel like we haven't had quite enough Irish bias this year, so I am quite happy to see this coming back into fruition again.
Yeah, it was a good week for Liverpool, I think. Good result, and Niamh Fahey with her 100 appearance for the club as well. Again, the ever dependable performance that she put in, and then Megan Campbell. It's a shame that nothing came off one of her throws, but every time she threw one in, it just caused absolute chaos for West Ham. And yeah, like, it's just such a weapon. And at one stage, she did go down and receive a little bit of treatment on her shoulder, and it was a very worrying moment, I think. We probably all held our breath and was like, oh, her shoulder.
Yeah, she could injure her leg, she could knee injury, not her arms or shoulder.
My internet had like froze when I was watching it, and like all I saw was her going down and then you tweeting me like, oh no, her shoulder, and I was like, no. What's that? Frantically refreshing to see what had actually happened.
She seemed fine anyway. She had a long show after that, so it all seemed okay.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. Karen, as the fresh face who hasn't been here for a while, what are your thoughts on this team of the week?
I actually agree with a lot of it. The two standout players for me at the weekend were Ona Batlle for United and Wrighton again for Chelsea. I think she's
Bagier.
Sorry, this is the Kilkenny.
Let's do some Spanish classes.
I thought that the two of them really stood out. Just complete quality. The Ramsey in goal. I know she was on the losing end, and we often don't pick that, but I thought Arsenal dominated that game against Everton, and to only concede 1 against that Arsenal attack. I think they had something like 33 shots and 14 of them were on target. So I think she can be really, really proud of her performance. And again, there was a few moments where goalkeepers didn't cover themselves in glory in other games. So it was good to see a standout performance there.
Although slightly worrying that she is performing this well from a Irish perspective.
Yes.
Like, I think at this stage the question probably has to be asked, has Courtney lost her starting position? Because it certainly feels like it, especially for the WSL. Like, obviously might get a run out in other spaces, but not in the league, it would seem.
Looks like it. If that performance at the weekend is anything to go by, she's not doing anything wrong for Courtney to get back in, which is a problem.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because I don't want to be talking about how important it is for our goalkeepers, particularly our goalkeepers, to have minutes before the World Cup. But it is so important because you can train as an outfield player coming back from injury or whatever, or you're not playing. You can still train and you can still get the sharpness and the maybe not the match fitness, but very similar simulating to the matches. But for a goalkeeper, you just can't get it. It's not the same. So
much of it is mental, and if you spent that long sitting on the bench,
and it's just completely different than training. Your whole training philosophy is to prepare yourself for the game and then try to simulate game situations, but you can never do it. So it's all about the difference between an average and a really good goalkeeper is how you adapt to that on the pitch. So it's really important that she gets back in there. She can't be sitting on the bench after Christmas. Just can't happen. It's not going to happen. So as much
if you were in her shoes, would you be looking at a loan move?
I would be freaking out right about now because Ramsey's playing really well. And also Courtney was doing well. She didn't do anything wrong to get dropped. So
just goes to show that Ramsey is at a very high level, and it's unlikely that she will.
And she's very much, it's very likely that is his first goalkeeping choice. But what can you do? Last year it was the same for Courtney. She was sitting on the bench but still performed really well for Ireland. So it's difficult. I just think the World Cup is going to be
I think
extremely
you could
important.
probably argue from like a mentality side last year. Like I know she's talked about it quite a lot, that she worked so hard in those months and got herself to a place where like mentally she was a lot stronger, like her game improved. It was probably fine for that amount of time in terms of getting her to a space she needed after making those pretty big mistakes. But now is the time to like push on and actually be making the appearances and being a consistent starter for someone.
No, absolutely.
So, 8
I
months
think she did
on the bench.
I think she did brilliant. I think she was absolutely brilliant for Ireland, considering she wasn't a regular starter for Everton as well. Yeah. But there's only, like, you're playing again, every single team in the World Cup is going to be top quality. She's going to be very, very busy. And I hope I'm wrong again, as I was in the first case. But for me, she needs to be playing, and Ramsey's playing really well. So that's a bit concerning for me.
Yeah. A name that
and for my dogs, they totally agree with me.
A name that is very good to see back on there. I think it's September last time she played, Fran Kirby. It's been a while, and she just slotted back in there like there was nothing wrong. I mean, admittedly, it was a good game to come back in, like an 8-0 win. You would kind of expect as much, but even still, for a player who hasn't played in a long time, it seemed pretty seamless for her.
Brilliant, yeah. 2 goals. And Wrighton's ball for Kirby's first goal, like, oh my God, what a pass.
Can I just say, it's the best I've ever seen Wrighton play. I thought she was absolutely incredible. She was everywhere, involved in everything. She was just brilliant. And I know it's difficult because they're playing against the worst side in the league, let's be honest. But I thought she was brilliant. And you know what? Chelsea need Kirby. If they're not going to have Pernille Harder, they have to have Kirby. And I just hope they can keep her fit.
Yeah, Chelsea player that did well, maybe worth to mention, was Fleming. Got herself a couple of goals as well, centre mid. So that was pretty good. And obviously delighted to see Niamh in there, but I also thought Flaherty did well beside her. She's come in for some criticism, so it was good to see her putting in a performance. She had a really good block there at the end as well to kind of keep the clean sheet, which is super important for them.
I think all around, I think as a team, Liverpool they were very connected good. And everything they've done was brilliant.
Like, their press was really good, really aggressive, and it was good to see them kind of play on the front foot.
Yeah, that's why I put the 2 midfielders in there, because I think they both just commanded the midfield, and Holland, like, from the first minute, like
Holland run excellent again. Goal. I also thought Laura Coombs did really well for City. We don't really talk about her at all.
Yeah, her
nice goal as well. Yeah,
phenomenal strike for her goal. I thought Woodham for Reading, another player we don't mention that much, was really good down the left.
She was really good. She was really good. Yeah, definitely.
We won't be knocking Megan Campbell out of the way, so or just give her an honourable mention.
Emma, thank you very much for joining us.
No worries. See you soon.
See you next week. So the WSL was back this weekend after a little bit of a break, and some pretty big scorelines, some interesting results. Nothing maybe that was massively unsurprising. I think some of the results were definitely on their way. But we'll start at Old Trafford and Man United 5-0 against Aston Villa. And it's safe to say the Mark Skinner machine is humming along very nicely at the moment, and is a different beast to the team we saw next season, I think is probably fair enough to say.
Yeah, I think there's just more variety in their play, and you can see that by the fact that there was 5 different goal scorers. They can score from crosses. They have some nice interplay as well. I think Toon was given way too much space and just was able to pick out loads of passes. We know how good her relationship is with Galton and Russo, and some really nice goals there as well.
It's interesting because that's literally exactly what Mark Skinner said after the game. He was like, this year we can get a goal from a cross, we can turn it in, we can run 1-on-1. We couldn't find ways last year, and I didn't expect this many different scorers this early in the season. Everyone is chipping in. And he was even saying that, like, at halftime when it was 2-0, he wasn't really that happy about it. But he's like, it wasn't terrible. And I was like, it just shows such a, I don't even know if a different attitude is the right way to approach it, but a change in the sense that they know they have the actual resources there to get these sort of results and to obviously do what they did against teams like Arsenal.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's the Arsenal game. I think that's going to be a real turning point for them. We spoke about them going into that game at the Emirates about not beating the three top sides, City, Chelsea, Arsenal. And that was the thing, wasn't it? Because they've been in the season. This is their fourth year in the WSL, and they've came fourth every single time. And they just can't seem to get into that Champions League spot. This is the year they're going to do it. They have to do it.
Next week's game, really, isn't it? The United City game. Like that's it. And, you know, going into that game, they look extremely good. They've got a really good squad. They've players that are really not happy because they're sitting on the bench, which I think is a great sign, by the way. And it's what you said, like going into the game with all these different goal scorers, everybody's on form. The two midfielders who I would have said were their weakest unit, as in Katie Zelem and Hayley Ladd, actually are performing brilliantly. Just marshalling that midfield in there. And they don't need to push forward. I know Katie Zelem scored, but they don't need to push forward. They can allow all the players around them, like Galton and Nikita Parris, to push on. I thought Nikita was a bit quiet, actually. I was expecting a little bit more from her, but she does have Lucia Garcia sitting on the bench, and that's what he has. He can change it around. He can put at least two players on that are not going to be a weakness, putting the subs on. So they're looking really good. They're definitely challenging for the Champions League, and I think they'll challenge for the title itself.
That's a big call.
Yeah. They are very impressive, though, to be fair. There's a couple of times I know Skinner mentioned maybe that they switched off and was that goal offside, but I think they were always in control, and following up the highs of beating Arsenal at the Emirates was always going to be hard. But to put in a performance like that in front of over 30,000 fans at Old Trafford, I think they're just going to go, like, their confidence seems good, and they need that going into the City game, because they know how big it is for them to just have pipped them last season. That would have hurt them.
They haven't conceded. They haven't conceded from a set piece. They haven't conceded a header. I just think that's an amazing.
They have a really solid goalkeeper, and you see like how
the difference that makes.
Compared to teams who are just below them. There's mistakes happening there, and they can kind of be sure that that's not going to happen. Villa, I thought, were disappointed, and they'd 4 subs. They just lack depth, don't they? There's
nobody. Nobody on the bench. I mean, I felt a bit sorry for them, because just speaking to Rusha Littlejohn before the game, they have injuries. Rusha was ready to come back, probably going to start, and then she pulled up in training the day before. Just bad luck, you know, and that team can't afford to have bad luck. Like, they just don't have the squad.
Well, I think, like, for the game at the weekend, there's 3 players out with ACLs, and the Tash Harding had a quad problem. Then Rusha was obviously supposed to play and then didn't, and then Hansen was also ruled out because of her loan deal. So, like, that's what, like, 6 players, and all like quite notable names as well, that you can't play. But I don't think it's an entire excuse for how they actually did perform on the day. Like, I think a team like Aston Villa, you wouldn't expect them to go 5-0 down. You want to see something a bit more, and I think they'd expect a little bit more. But that is like, it's a very dire bench situation. It's getting close to Georgia Stanway in goal for City last year.
but not only that, even not talking about injuries or the depth of their squad, looking at their goals, they 10 goals in the league. 8 of those goals have been scored by Rachel Daly. I mean, that's, for me, that's not a good thing. Just keep her quiet, and you could very, very likely you're going to do well. And also Daly, who I think is brilliant. I love her as a player. Kenza Daly. She has amazing stats for getting the ball into the box, for assists and things like that. So keep both of those players quiet, and they don't really have much else, unfortunately.
No, they really struggled, and they have the joy of facing Arsenal next. So it's not getting any easier on their run of form, although they might take some heart from Arsenal's performance against Everton at the weekend. Performed incredibly well, but just really struggled to get a goal in. It took a bit of Miedema magic. I think it's her first goal since like 5 games, so like October time-ish, since the last time she scored. But obviously she has also been out for the last while. What did you guys make of the Arsenal stat? Also the Everton performance, which is probably slightly more interesting because this team, I feel like, has something in them and they keep getting nearly there and just not fully getting across the line with it.
Yeah, they're a bit more consistent in how they played this year. Like last year, they were really all over the place, obviously a huge amount of changes and stuff, but they're a bit more disciplined, I think, and more of a unit this year. Arsenal, they really just weren't efficient with the amount of shots that they had and chances that they created, which you wouldn't really associate with them, given the firepower that they do have. Miedema's goal was phenomenal feet, phenomenal finish. She's best in the box. I think some of her link-up play is phenomenal, but when you have someone who can pull a goal out when there's 4 or 5 players around her in the box, that's a special talent, and I still think her best position is higher up the pitch.
Yeah, totally agree. Even if she doesn't agree with us, Carol, she's better higher up. Blackstenius does a great job, but nobody, I think Miedema is one of the best number 9s in the world. And I don't understand why she wants to drop off. She can be a false 9. She can play higher up and be a false 9 sometimes if she wants to drop off. But I prefer way higher up. And just with Everton, I think they're a good team. They're a solid team. But they don't really have that match winner, if you know what I mean. I think Jess Park is a great player. She's incredible. But she needs players around her. And I don't think they have that particular player. That's just
they
a
need
worldie.
A daily, don't they?
Yeah,
They can just get goals from nothing.
Exactly. Good team, but never going to really challenge.
Very mid-table.
3 or 4, yeah.
Gone are the old days of Everton where they used to dominate. It'd be nice to see them like get back to that same sort of level just in terms of the competitiveness of the league, but considering how the men's team is going as well, I don't really see that happening anytime soon. Chelsea 8, Leicester 0. I was kind of like looking at this match and I was like, I don't even really know what there is to say about it apart from some of the individual performances. We talked a little bit about Guro Reiten in the team of the week. She was obviously very good. Fran Kirby as well. Also, a shout out to Emma Hayes, her 300th match in charge, which is no mean feat in any way. And especially when you look at what she has developed at Chelsea and everything she has done there. So yeah, I don't know if there was any actual tactical interest you guys took from the match, but I really thought it was those individual performances were the things that stuck out for me against it.
It's hard to even think about tactics when Leicester were just so bad. It was from the first goal, I think it was in the 4th minute that Reiten got, and again, just to sing her praises because she is amazing and has been all season, but yeah, it was never on the cards that Leicester were going to get anything out of this game, I thought, from kickoff.
No, and it's like 8 goals. They just weren't challenging. They weren't getting close. I mean, stuff that you don't...
One less than they conceded last year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Glass half full, Kathleen.
No, that was just me being a complete smart aleck. It wasn't glass half full.
A smart aleck. I haven't heard that in so long. You have to be correct. No, I just think great to see Fran Kirby back. I spoke about as well, team of the week. They need her in there. Obviously Harder's not going to be back for a while, and without either of those, I just think they lack that flow from midfield to attack. So for me, they really need Fran Kirby. And then just to shout out to Guro Reiten again, I thought she was incredible. I thought she was brilliant. The best game I've seen her play.
I don't think she's the most assists in the league, and only Chloe Kelly has created more chances, and she's created like 1 more than her. So, you know, up there with very good company stats, in terms of her stats for the season. And only 3, I think Beth Mead has her overall for the season is the WSL record, and Reiten is only like 2 or 3 away from breaking that as well. So she's obviously very much at the top of her game. Reading 1, Tottenham 0. A very impressive and very much needed result for Reading, just to give them that bit of a cushion at the bottom of the table. And I'd say Leicester didn't make their day any better seeing that result come through. Bad for Spurs as well. They've seemed to be on this solid downward trajectory, and a team like Reading are really the sort of team they should be beaten.
Yeah, I don't really know what's kind of happened. Spurs, they don't seem to have the same bite about them that they did last year. They should be taking a game to a team like Reading, and instead it was the opposite way. I thought Reading had more energy, their press was better, they really caused a lot of troubles from wide areas. Mentioned Woodham getting forward, which was really good. Great to see a performance like that out of Reading, because they have been so, below par for much of the start of the season, and especially they were riddled with flu with 6 or so changes from the last game. They had less shots, less possession than Spurs, but I still thought they were a far more impressive team than Spurs over the weekend. Really, what Spurs brought, particularly that first 20 minutes, they put themselves under all sorts of pressure.
Huge win for them. Huge win. They really needed that. I totally agree. Lily Woodham was so good, really impressive. She was kind of playing left back. She's not left back. She's actually an attacking midfielder, but she did absolutely brilliant back there. And they were just fighting. And it's like as if they went into that game, half their team were down with illness. So they knew they had to fight, and sometimes that happens with the team when you're missing your best player or your better players. You have to fight that little bit extra, and it's exactly what they did. And I thought Tottenham were so poor. I thought they were really poor, and as you said, Karen, like last year they were a fighting team. They would have been horrible to play against last season, and now they just don't have that fight. I feel like they want to play football.
Not their strength.
And I don't know why. I'm like, just do what you do, just fight, just put the balls in the box. Well, you've seen when Harris came on, who has been out with injury. She came on and she was just putting balls into the box. She's very good. She's a very good crosser of the ball. She was just putting the balls in the box, and it was just much better. It's what they were doing last season, just getting on the ball, getting it high up the pitch, and just trying to cross the ball in. And it's true. It's Neville is not on the team of the week this week for once, because she's just doing way too much. Like and I don't know whether it's coming from the manager or it's her herself. She feels she can do all this. No, play right back. Try and get up the pitch if you can and get the balls in, but do your job as a right back first, and just back to basics with them, because they've just seemed to go a little bit ahead of themselves.
Well, especially with a match against Chelsea coming up next for Reading before Christmas, they will be very happy to get those points on the table and just take that cushion. Man City 3, Brighton 1. Another home victory for City at the Academy Stadium. They very, very much like playing from home. I think they're 9 from 9 in the last times they've been there. Already mentioned Chloe Kelly. This is possibly a game where, again, don't like talking about Irish goalkeepers and fumbles and things going wrong, but another slightly difficult game for Megan Walsh.
Yeah, I'll talk about the goalkeepers. Don't say anything. Just looking a little bit uncomfortable at the moment. She's having a bit of a bad time, and that's confidence, and that will happen when you are having a bad time or you make some mistakes. If you're not putting it right at training, it will continue to go on. I don't know what her trainer is like, her goalkeeping coach is like. I'm sure he's very good, but she really needs to work hard in training to get that confidence back. She did make a couple of good saves, so hopefully that will help her a little bit. But in general, Brighton looked like they did under Hope Powell, a little bit lackluster, no fight in them, mistakes at the back. Playing against a really good team, you can't deny that. But in general, Brighton, it's just basically all the teams are where they should be in the league. It doesn't lie, does it? And they're down they're down there in the bottom, and it's where they should be, because too many mistakes back there, not really good enough.
No, they got a consolation goal, but it was really more down to City making changes and things like that. I think
poor defending, poor goalkeeping again.
If City wanted to, they could have pushed on more in that game.
Yeah. I feel like that's City at the moment. They're just doing what they need to do. They do what they need to do.
I'll need to do a little bit more next week, hopefully.
Well, that's going to be a game and a half for sure. That's a huge game, more than just points, by the way. That, for me, I think it's about keeping jobs and the bragging rights, obviously, and Champions League spot, ultimately.
Well, it kind of is like, it adds maybe that bit of grit to Manchester derbies that we haven't always had in the past, and that I think it's like 40,000 tickets sold. There's, the Champions League place is on the line. this United team really want to prove where they are at, and City have just kind of been going along looking for their big scalp and hasn't really come yet. And this could be the one that, because it'll obviously catapult them into the top 3 then, and probably put United down. I'm not, maybe on goal difference. I'm not entirely sure what the goal difference is, but it'll put them close anyways. Yes. So there's a lot riding on it.
Huge, massive game. Looking forward to it. I have a spare ticket, the Puma box. If anybody wants to come, put it out there.
No cards like
about it. No, you've been to Barbados. You're not allowed. You stay where you are.
I need to top up my tan. The weather's lovely in Manchester, December.
You're allowed to go if you do like a live koi gig from straight afterwards for all our loyal listeners, giving all your thoughts. And then finally, Liverpool 2, West Ham 0. One of those results that I feel like Liverpool have been building to doing something and actually getting their win again after winning on the first day. And finally it came, and pretty well deserved all in all. Sten goal was trending on my Twitter during the match, which, you know, yeah. Always have to see that. It's their 6th goal.
I love these little, I never think of them. I'm like, why
I know, I saw people saying it and I was like, oh, that's so smart.
They were awesome. It's true what Emma Carroll said. Liverpool are coming into their own, right? And that's because of players back from injury, as far as I'm concerned. I said it before about Matt Beard. He'll have an organised team. The difficulty is if he has injuries or illnesses or whatever and he can't put out the team he wants. But realistically, that was their first win since the first game. Which is incredible. But they
surprising given the performance they put in. If they're capable of that, I thought they were all over West Ham.
No, they were. But it was the first time I've actually looked at Liverpool and said, yes, this is what I expect from them. They have the players to do this. So I'm hoping this will kick them on a little bit, and we'll see much better performances from them.
And I know we mentioned it earlier, but just to give another shout to Nifa, his 100th appearance for the club, because I feel like she has been a very loyal servant to Irish football, and it's always nice to see one of our own marking something out. I know Liverpool the last few years in terms of women's club maybe haven't been the biggest deal in the same way that people, but there's still a lot of fans over here for the club, and it's great to see her. I mean, it's not even the fact she's made her 100th appearance. Like, she's still one of the most dominant figures in their lineup. She is so certain she is the person that you probably want first on the team sheet every week. So, very well done to her.
Capitana, yeah, she's awesome. I mean, Niamh, she's no spring chicken. She's hanging in there. And it's great to see that she's captain of one of, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest clubs, especially as, you know, from being from Ireland as well. Liverpool's has a massive Irish contingency. So yeah.
Well, long may it continue. I know you say she's no spring chicken, but I reckon there's still a little while left of those legs, at least until after the World Cup anyways. That's it for this week's episode of Koi Gig, the 50th episode, which is always nice to celebrate these landmarks. We will be back next week with the final weekend of WSL action before the Christmas break. But do not worry, because we will also have some more Christmas special coming up after that. So we won't be leaving you for too long. We'll still be there to entertain you while you're hanging your decorations, or, I don't know, recovering from 12 pubs or whatever it is people do these days to celebrate Christmas. I'm a granny in my iron jumper. I don't know. We will see you all next week, and thank you so much for listening.
The Koi Gig Pod on OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.